Hello. 4.NBT.3 talks about rounding. The first strategy for rounding is going to be using a number line. This is in your math notebook, and for the first example, we're going to be talking about number 48. In order to make our number line, the first thing we have to do is think about what numbers are going to be at the ends of the number line. Because my number is 48 and I'm rounding to the tens place, I look at that number and that is a 4, so I know that that's going to start with 40. Then I'm basically just thinking about counting by tens, and the next 10 is going to be 50. So those two numbers are going to be at the ends of my number line. The next thing that you really need to do is to cut your number line in half and figure out what number is going to be directly in the middle, and that's going to be 45. Okay, so after you've gotten your benchmark numbers, and the benchmark numbers are the beginning, the middle, and the end, then you're going to place your number on there. So they've already gone ahead and put 48 on there. Of course, we can see right off the bat that 48 is very close to 50, and so 48 is going to round up to 50. We're going to do a couple more of these. So here we have number 23, we're rounding to the nearest 10 still, and I've got 20 and 30 written on my number line because I know that there's a 2 in the tens place, so that means it starts with 20s. The next number we count by tens would be 30s. I'm going to do my halfway point like this, and I know that's going to be 25 is halfway between 20 and 30. 23 is going to be somewhere around in here. And so that helps me see that if I have not passed over this line yet, that I'm going to round down to this number. If I did pass over the line and I was up in this section, then I would round up to that number. Okay, the next one is 36. I see that I have a 3 in the tens place, so that's going to start me with a 30 here, and the next tens is a 40. Halfway through is going to be 35. And then my number is 36, which is just one past there. And so that tells me that I'm going to round to 40. I'm going to circle the number that my answer is, basically. Okay, next one, 44. So I see 4 in the tens place, which means 40 on this end. The next number, counting by tens, is 50. Halfway through is 45. And 44 is just before that. So I can see I haven't crossed the line yet, which means I'm going to round to 40. Now we're going to get a little bit more tricky because we are into numbers with hundreds place value. It still is going to be looking at the tens place. So I see a 1 in the tens place. So I know that this is really 10, because you can even cover that up and you can see that it's 14. So it would really be 10, and then the next number, of course, would be 20. I can't leave it that way because I have a 1 in the hundreds place, so I need to add that 1 in the hundreds place. So now my number line has 110 and 120. Halfway through 110 and 120 is 115. And of course 114 is just in front of that. And so I see that I haven't crossed over this midline, which means I round down to 110. To 114 rounded to the tens place is 110. Next one, I have 248. We kind of handle it the same way as we did above. Don't even worry about the 2 in the hundreds place. Just think of it first as a 48. So I see the 4, so I know I'm going to start with 40 here. The next number I count to would be 50 with tens. I got to go ahead and put my 2 back in, my hundreds place 2. So there I go. So now I'm looking between 240 and 250. I'm going to do my halfway point, 245. And 248 is going to be somewhere around in here. Now I can see I'm closer to 250, so 248 rounded to the nearest 10 is 250. And we're going to do one more of those, 175. So can you think about what would be this number on the end of your number line? If I see a 7 in the tens place, that means I'm going to have 70. And then the next 10 would be 80. I'm going to go ahead and put that 1 back in the hundreds place. So between 170 and 180, halfway through is 175. My number happens to fall right on that halfway point. And the rule for rounding, which you may remember from 3rd grade, is 5 or more, add 1 more. So because it is on the 5, we're actually going to get that bumped up, and it's going to round to 180. Next one is a big number, and they're trying to get you now because they have a large number. It does not matter. You're still only going to look at this tens place if that's what I'm rounding to. So I see that I have a 7, so I know that my first is going to be 70, and I know my second benchmark will then have to be 80. I'm going to go back in and fill in the other numbers, the 2 and the 4, and I'm going to put the 2 and the 4. So now I have my numbers on my number line. Halfway through is going to be 2, 4, 7, 5, because it's really just 75 is between 70 and 80. So even though there's a lot of numbers and they're trying to fool you, if you just take it calm, you can figure it out. I have 2, 4, 7, 2, so here's 70, here's 75, so 72 is going to be somewhere in here. So 2, 4, 7, 2 is going to be somewhere here. I see that I am closer to this number, so that 2,472 rounded to the nearest 10 is 2,470. Next, we're going to be talking about rounding to the nearest 100 using a number line. The number that we're using in our math notebook is 537. So we're going to look at the number that's in the hundreds place, which is 5. So I know that my number line is going to start with 500. The next number, if I count by hundreds, will take me up to 600. Okay? Halfway between 500 and 600 is 550. I always put my halfway mark on there too, because that helps you to know whether or not to round up or down. I see that 537 on the number line is before the halfway point. So if it's in this first part of the number line, I know that it rounds down to 500. Okay, now we're going to do some examples. Okay, so I have these numbers, and I've been asked to round to the nearest 100 on the number line. So my first number is 418. I've got to label my number line. I see that in the hundreds place I have a 4, so I'm going to put 400 at the beginning, 500 at the end, and then halfway through 400 and 500 about here is about 450. I have the number 418. It's going to be pretty, somewhere down in this way. So I know that 418 rounded to the nearest 100 is going to be 400 because it's on this side of the halfway point. Okay, it's 418 is closer to 400 than it is to 500. Next one is 839. I look at the number in the hundreds place. I'm going to put 800 here. Then it will be 900. That's the next halfway mark. In between 800 and 900, I have 850. Put that. I have 839, which is going to fall somewhere around in here. Because 839 is not past the halfway mark and closer to 800, I'm going to round it to 800. Okay, I'm going to go down. I think I'm going to go down to this one now. This one starts to get a little confusing because you have an extra number, but don't let that stress you out. Still look at the number in the hundreds place. So I have a 4 for 400, so I know 400, and then I know 500 would be here. I got to go back in and put in the number in the thousands place. Halfway between will be 2,450, and if that stresses you out, just think of the hundreds first, and then add your thousands back in. I have 2,435, which is going to fall somewhere around in this general area, and so that I can see that 435 is closer to 2,400. So that's going to be rounded to 100. Next one, 1,725. I'm going to look at the number in the hundreds place. I'm going to put that at the beginning, the next 100 at the next part, and then I'm going to add my 1 in the thousands place back. The halfway mark is going to be 750, but don't forget to add your thousands place back in. I've got 1,725. I'm going to say it's about halfway between these two. And so I see that 1,725 is closer to 1,700. So that's rounding it to the nearest 100. Another way to think about these is if you have the number 435, you know that on a number line you're looking at 400 and 500. You know that 35 is before 450. It's less, 35 is less than 50, so you know you're going to round down to the 400. Same thing here. If you have 627 and you're rounding it to the nearest 100, you can look at these two numbers and it will tell you 27, and you know between 600 and 700 is 650. 27 is less than 50, so you know you'll be rounding down to 600. Same thing here, only going the other way. We have 868. So if I was doing a number line for this one, it would be 800 and 900. The halfway mark would be 850. I know that 68 is more than 50, so then I will be rounding up to 900. And that works again down here. 390, my choices would be 300 and 400. The halfway part would be 350. 390 is more than that and very close to 400, so I know I'm going to be rounding up to 400.